New footage just dropped, and people say it shows David crouched low, carefully wiping the shoes of the same girl who later turned up in the trunk of his Tesla. The whole thing looks slow, almost tender, like he's polishing something precious, and the internet lit up in seconds. Some folks are saying, it's nothing, just cleaning, while others are more like, nah, this feels off. But here's what nobody's asking out loud. Why did this clip come back now? And who wanted it trending today? The timing might be the real story, not just the motions in the frame. This wasn't just some random throwback video. Every frame feels heavy, like there's something hidden in the background nobody's catching. Some people think it was resurfaced to distract. Others think it was dropped to expose. Either way, the timing of it being pushed out right now, right after all these rumors, is raising eyebrows. People are already connecting dots, and once folks start digging online, things spread fast. But let's rewind. This whole case started with what looked like a regular day for tow yard workers just trying to clear out cars. They didn't sign up to be in the middle of a nightmare. On September 8th, 2025, workers at a Hollywood impound lot popped open the front trunk of a black Tesla, and that's when the entire story flipped. Inside was a bag holding the remains of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. That Tesla, registered to none other than David Anthony Burke. Yes, the same David whose music has been blowing up these last couple years. Here's what makes it even more haunting. That car had been sitting for days. Neighbors in the Hollywood Hills kept complaining about a stench seeping out, and when the city finally towed it, that's how it ended up at the lot. 5 days later, when workers opened it up, they were hit with the discovery that's now making headlines everywhere. Now think about the timing here. Celeste's 15th birthday was literally September 7th, the day before she was found. But experts say the state of her remains shows she'd been gone way longer. The smell alone told workers this wasn't recent. Reports suggest she never even made it to see that birthday, that she'd been gone since way back in April of 2024 when she first went missing. That's over a year of her family searching, hoping, and then this is how the story ends. It's heartbreaking. And this isn't some random missing person story. What's coming out paints a much darker picture. Online detectives, statements from her family, even investigators are pointing toward an alleged relationship between David and Celeste that started when she was barely 11 or 12 years old, while he was already older. Those are heavy accusations, but the patterns, the receipts, the whispers, they all line up in ways that feel way too close for comfort. One of the biggest red flags? Tattoos. Both David and Celeste had the same ink on their right index fingers, 4 letters spelling shh. Now, anybody can brush that off like it's just matching tattoos. People do that. But when you stack that next to the timing, the music, the photos, the sightings, it looks less like coincidence and more like a symbol of something deeper. The LA County Medical Examiner even confirmed Celeste's identity, partly because of that tattoo. Think about that. Something they once thought was a bond became evidence in one of the most disturbing cases in years. Then you have her mom's testimony. Celeste's mother told reporters straight up that her daughter had been dating someone named David when she disappeared. That's not rumor. That's her own family speaking. Combine that with photos of David hanging out near Celeste's neighborhood and things look worse. One shot shows him in a parking lot geotagged just 6 minutes away from her house in Lake Elsinore. And let's be clear, Lake Elsinore is 70 miles away from where David lived in Los Angeles. That means he wasn't just casually passing through. He had a reason to be there. Now, here's where the story really starts feeling like a twisted puzzle. In December 2023, just months before Celeste vanished, a demo track leaked on SoundCloud. The name of the track? Celeste. The lyrics? Oh Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. The tone of those bars, the obsession in them. It doesn't sound like just a song. When you hear that after knowing what happened, it takes on a whole new meaning, possessive and dark. way too specific to ignore. Add in Discord chats that allegedly went down between David and Celeste from 2021 to 2023. We don't have every line out in public, but the word is those chats exist and show interactions while she was underage. If investigators confirm that trail, it's another layer that ties the story together. Because let's be real, the internet leaves footprints. Screenshots, servers, metadata, once they're out there, you can't erase everything. Then there's Celeste's history of running away. This wasn't the first time she disappeared. Reports say she went missing in January 2024 and then again in April. That second time, she never came back. Teachers even remembered it. One middle school teacher said Celeste had told folks about meeting a rapper online, running off to Hollywood, and being gone for a month before cops found her and brought her back. The teacher said Celeste came back, shared the story, then vanished again not long after. Knowing what we know now, those early runaways weren't random. They were warnings, and the physical details from when she was found, her weight, her clothing, her jewelry, all lined up with what her family remembered and with evidence investigators collected. She was described as 71 pounds, with wavy black hair, wearing black leggings, a tube top, a chain bracelet, and a stud earring. These identifiers, plus the tattoo, gave investigators enough to confirm her identity even after all that time. That's how specific the evidence is. So let's pause here. We've got matching tattoos, we've got family testimony linking her to David, we've got photos placing him near her neighborhood, we've got a demo track calling her out by name, we've got alleged Discord chats, and we've got her history of runaways that line up with everything else. This isn't just smoke. It's a whole fire. And the craziest part, we're still only scratching the surface. Because once law enforcement stepped in heavy, the story went from disturbing to straight up surreal. LAPD didn't just take statements. They went for the jugular. And what they found, or were looking for, might explain why the silence around this case is so loud right now. But that part, that's where the story flips again. Because what investigators did next opened the floodgates on David's entire come-up, his lifestyle, and the people he surrounded himself with. And it had fans, brands, and the whole music industry scrambling to back away before it burned them too. And what came out of that search? That's what we'll get into next. When LAPD made their move, they didn't play around. On September 18, 2025, 10 days after Celeste's body was found, they rolled up to a Hollywood Hills mansion tied to David. This wasn't some casual knock on the door either. They came with a full-on search warrant, the kind you only see when cops already think they know what they're looking for. They seized electronics, swept through the crib, and started spraying luminol across the place. If you've ever seen those crime shows, luminol lights up blood, even if somebody tried to clean it. That right there tells you exactly what police suspected. This house wasn't even in David's name. It was rented by his manager, Josh Marshall, a dude with ties to Interscope Records. But even though the paperwork had Josh on it, everybody knew who was living there. The mansion was pulling $20 grand a month in rent. No way David was footing that solo at his age without major backing. The receipts point straight to David being the main resident, and his own socials gave him up too. Photos and videos from inside that mansion, parties with industry folks, little flexes on IG, it was all right there. But police weren't worried about who was paying the rent. They were searching drains, spraying bathrooms, checking every inch for traces of blood or tissue. They weren't just casually poking around. They were trying to figure out if that house was where the real crime went down. And the fact that Celeste's remains weren't intact when they were found made those searches even more chilling. Reports say investigators were looking for traces in sinks, showers, even outdoor drains. That level of intensity, it screams that they thought something grim happened inside those walls. Now, here's where it gets sticky for the industry, because while the house was technically rented by David's manager, the connections ran deep. This was an Interscope adjacent property, meaning the label's name was indirectly tied to the spot. That's why the fallout wasn't just about David. It was about everyone in his circle who ignored the red flags. See, photos from that house don't just show David chilling solo. They show him entertaining guests, people like Benny Blanco, people from Cat's Eye, big names, big faces, all of them caught up now because of their proximity to him. And while nobody's saying they had anything to do with Celeste, just being linked to the same property during the timeline makes people ask questions. But here's the kicker. No direct photos of Celeste inside the mansion have surfaced. That doesn't mean she wasn't there, but it does mean either those receipts don't exist or they've been scrubbed. What investigators did find, though? Digital traces. Reports say streams, photos, and chats surfaced showing David and Celeste together. And one detail stands out. He allegedly told moderators not to leave certain live streams up once they ended. That shows awareness. He knew how bad it would look later, which is why he wanted those traces gone. But as the internet always proves, nothing ever really disappears. And once law enforcement started putting pressure on, the industry's reaction was fast. David's entire Withered World tour was canceled just like that. His album release suspended indefinitely. Brands that once plastered him everywhere, they dipped out overnight. Crocs, Hollister, they both cut ties. Fortnite even renamed his emote to avoid being connected. The Grammy Museum scrubbed his scheduled appearance. Even merch, bloody shirts, violent imagery got pulled from shelves. The message was clear. Nobody wanted their name next to his anymore. But here's the wild contradiction. While the industry pulled back, his music numbers went the other way. Romantic Homicide shot up 102 spots on Spotify's global chart right after the news broke. A track with violent lyrics suddenly felt like a confession. Fans replayed it with new ears, dissecting every bar, and streams skyrocketed. That song, which already had a haunting vibe, took on a whole new life once people connected it to the case. Listen to some of those lyrics again. In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it. That hits different now, doesn't it? The timing of when the track was written, the way it blew up, and the context of what we now know, it's almost too on the nose. And the fact that he doubled down on releasing it after his mom told him not to, that detail makes people look at the whole situation sideways. See, David once admitted that his mom hated the song. She said it was too violent, told him straight up not to put it out. And his response? He said whenever his mom hates something, he knows it's cool. That twisted logic convinced him to release Romantic Homicide. He saw her disapproval as validation. And now, knowing the case surrounding him, those words are haunting. Even the way he described making music back then feels off now. He bragged about talking to random people on Discord and Fortnite, letting them vent about their lives, and then flipping their stories into songs without them knowing. At the time, people thought it was creative. Now, it feels like blurred boundaries. Who exactly was he pulling stories from? Whose lives inspired tracks like Celeste or Romantic Homicide? With everything going on, those old interviews sound a whole lot darker. And through all this noise, David's silence speaks the loudest. He hasn't given one interview, one statement, one real explanation. His last public sighting was a Seattle performance before the search warrant. Since then, canceled shows, disappeared from the spotlight. Some say he's in hiding, others say he's lawyering up. Either way, that silence is heavy. In the streets, we all know sometimes silence says more than words ever could. What's interesting, though, is how the silence plays differently depending on where you stand. To his fans, it looks suspicious, like, if you're innocent, why not say something? But from a legal perspective, it makes sense. Once you know police sprayed your house with luminol, once you know they're checking drains for blood evidence, you'd be dumb to keep talking. Anything you say could come back on you. So shutting up is the safest move legally, even if it makes you look guilty to the public. Meanwhile, LAPD's not saying much either. They've been unusually tight-lipped. No major press conferences, no detailed briefings. And that lack of info is making the public fill in the blanks themselves. Social media detectives are piecing together timelines faster than officials are, and that's leading to speculation running wild. People are comparing it to the Brian Kohberger case. Remember that? Where cops held their cards close until they had everything lined up. Same play here. And that's exactly why the public's so restless. Everyone's looking at David, waiting to see if he'll be officially named a suspect, waiting for charges to drop. But here's the catch. Just because the Tesla was registered in his name doesn't mean prosecutors can automatically pin it on him. They need evidence placing him at the scene when Celeste died, or at least when her body was put in the car. Until then, he sits in this weird space, not charged, not cleared, just hanging in limbo. And that limbo, that's where the streets go crazy. Fans arguing, brands backpedaling, police silent, David silent. It's like everyone's waiting for the next shoe to drop, but nobody knows when it's coming. But here's the part people aren't ready for, because while the public's stuck on silence and speculation, the evidence behind the scenes is stacking up in ways that might break this case wide open. We're talking digital receipts, timelines, and even other alleged victims. And once those details hit the surface, this story might not just be about Celeste anymore. As more details start leaking out, it's clear this case isn't just about one girl, one car, or one artist. It's about a pattern. Reports are saying David may have messaged other underage girls too, not just Celeste. If that's true, it changes everything. That's not an isolated incident. That's a track record. And if investigators can prove it, the charges on him could stack up quick. The timeline already looks ugly. Allegedly, David first started talking to Celeste back in 2021. He was about 16 at the time. She was only 11, maybe 12. By 2023, when things supposedly got deeper, he was 18 while she was still just 12, turning 13. You don't need to be a lawyer to see how bad that looks. If prosecutors can lay it out, that's statutory charges, no debate. And that's before even touching on the homicide part. Social media's been the double-edged sword here. The same platforms that let him connect with fans, drop snippets, and build hype are now the same platforms dragging up evidence, timelines, and screenshots. Reddit detectives, TikTok timelines, and Twitter threads are building cases in real time, sometimes faster than law enforcement. And while that can help shine a light, it also risks clouding things with rumors, half-truths, and mob justice. Still, it shows one thing. People are invested. People want answers. And the reactions from fans? They're split right down the middle. Some are done with him completely, deleting his songs, calling for boycotts, saying the industry needs to cut him off forever. Others are still clinging to the music, trying to separate art from artist. Some are like, the music hits, so I'm still playing it. But even for those fans, it's complicated now. Every lyric sounds different. Every song feels darker. Every performance has a shadow on it. The betrayal cuts deep because they didn't just lose an artist, they lost trust. Meanwhile, the industry's scrambling. Labels, brands, streaming platforms, they're all asking the same question. Did we ignore the signs? Were the warning flags waving this whole time while the money kept rolling in? Look back at his songs, the themes, the imagery. So many people are now saying it was all right there. Violent lyrics, disturbing visuals, even that leaked Celeste demo. But as long as the checks cleared, folks didn't press the issue. And now they're all trying to distance themselves overnight, like they had no idea. But let's not forget the heart of this story, Celeste's family. While everyone debates streams, lyrics, and industry fallout, her people are living this nightmare for real. They've had to set up fundraisers just to cover her funeral. They've had to speak publicly about the most painful loss anyone can imagine. Her mom having to say out loud that her daughter was dating someone named David when she went missing. That's not just evidence. That's a wound that'll never close. And it's not just about what happened. It's about how it happened in the public eye. Every detail of Celeste's last months is being picked apart online. Her runaways, her teacher's memories, her clothing, her jewelry, her tattoo. Strangers on the internet know more about her life than most people in her own neighborhood. That's the brutal part of cases like this. The family doesn't get to grieve in private. They're forced to relive it with the whole world watching. And what about David? His silence is deafening. No music drops. No interviews, no posts. He's vanished from the spotlight. His legal team is probably telling him not to say a word, and that makes sense. But the longer he stays quiet, the louder the speculation gets. Fans interpret silence as guilt. The industry interprets it as liability, and the streets interpret it as confirmation of what they already believe. Still, from a legal standpoint, the silence might be the smartest move he's got, because here's the thing. He's not officially charged with Celeste's death yet, and until prosecutors can place him at the exact scene when she died or when her body got put in that Tesla, it's all circumstantial. Heavy circumstantial, sure, but still not enough to lock in. That's why investigators are leaning so hard on forensics, blood evidence, tissue traces, digital footprints. They need that smoking gun to turn this from speculation into charges. But here's where it gets messy. Even if they can't charge him directly for homicide yet, there's still the alleged relationships with minors. There's still the Discord chats, the leaked demo, the tattoos, the photos. Prosecutors could easily build cases around those alone. And once those doors open, it won't just be about Celeste. It could turn into a domino effect with other alleged victims stepping forward. And through it all, the music keeps climbing. That's the twisted irony. The darker the case gets, the higher the streams go. Songs that once sounded like edgy indie tracks now sound like confessions, and people can't stop listening. It's like tragedy turned into entertainment, and that says a lot about how the internet works. But there's a bigger question lurking under all this. Where's the line between art and reality? When an artist writes violent or obsessive lyrics, is it just creative expression, or is it a diary entry dressed up as music? With David, it feels blurred. That leaked Celeste demo, those violent bars and romantic homicide, the Hello Kitty imagery linked to Celeste's interests, it all feels too specific, too connected. It's like art imitating life in the worst way possible. The broader implications stretch way beyond David. This case forces everyone to think about how young artists get handled, how social media gets exploited, and how fans overlook red flags when they're invested in the music. It forces labels to rethink who they're putting money behind. It forces platforms to reconsider what they're pushing on charts. And it forces all of us to ask, how many more warning signs are hiding in plain sight? As for Celeste, her stories become a tragic symbol of what happens when those signs get ignored. She wasn't just a name in a headline, she was a 15-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her. Her death isn't just a loss, it's a failure of the systems around her. Family, school, social media, industry, all of it failed to protect her. And now her family is left picking up the pieces while the world debates streams and charts. So here we are, a resurfaced video, a body in a Tesla, a mansion search, a silent artist, a grieving family, and an industry in damage control. The questions still hang heavy. Will police find that one piece of evidence that ties it all together? Will prosecutors bring charges that stick? Will more victims come forward? Or will this drag out in silence, leaving the public to speculate forever? One thing's clear, this story isn't going away anytime soon. And the way it ends could reshape not just David's career, but the way the entire music industry looks at young artists, accountability, and the red flags they've been ignoring. So what do you think? Is this silent strategy going to hold? Or is the evidence about to blow the lid off? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you've been locked in this whole time. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown.